Imagine stumbling upon a little girl who has no one to care for her, no food, no shelter, and no one to even mourn her. This unexpected meeting doesn't just change one life, it saves two. The story begins with a man walking through a crowded street, carrying a heavy bag of groceries. A deep scar runs across his face, making him stand out among the people passing by. Then, his eyes lock with those of a mysterious girl sitting quietly on the filthy roadside. The rain is falling hard, muting every sound around them. The girl, soaked and shivering, looks at him with lifeless eyes, then lowers her head slowly. She hugs herself tightly, staring down at the wet ground. The man knows getting involved could lead to trouble. He wants to walk away. But destiny has other plans. This moment will change everything. As he hesitates, the scene cuts to a few hours earlier. Inside a dark, damp cave, a monster lets out a loud roar. The man, our protagonist, is fighting a giant bird-like beast. He crouches, focusing all his strength, then swings his arm with power. The monster vanishes instantly, and a glowing crystal drops to the ground with a clear, sharp cling. After collecting a glowing crystal, his reward from defeating the monster, Kodo tosses it into his growing stash and walks off without a care. In this world, dungeons aren't just dangerous places. They're packed with treasures, rare items, and chances to get rich. People believe these massive towers, twisting mazes, and deep caves were built long ago by fire gods. And though they're deadly, the rewards hidden inside are too tempting to resist. Monsters appear endlessly in these places, but so do mana crystals, powerful resources everyone is fighting to collect. Kodo explains that the competition has become fierce. Many are willing to risk everything, even their lives, just to earn enough to support their loved ones. He lives in the heart of it all, a bustling city known as the dungeon capital. But while it seems full of opportunity, only the strong can survive here. As Kodo enters a building, he sees a receptionist being harassed by two guys arguing about replacing a teammate. They're loud and pushy until Kodo walks up behind them. The moment they notice him, their attitude changes completely. Nervous, they move aside and quickly leave, muttering silly excuses. And this is where we really meet Kodo. With a calm look in his eyes, he stares at the men walking away and quietly wonders why things in this world are always so unfair. Then, without a word, he drops a heavy sack of mana crystals on the counter and tells the receptionist to exchange them all. Kodo heads to the Adventurers Guild, the main hub for dungeon hunters and gold seekers. It's the go-to place where crystals are quickly exchanged for money. The friendly receptionist greets him with a warm smile and hands over a hefty pouch of gold. Then, in a soft, nervous voice, she asks if he'd like to split the money with anyone. Kodo leans in slightly and replies coldly that there's not a single part of him interested in working with others. Just a few sharp words, and it's clear he's someone who avoids attachments and prefers to stay alone. As he turns to leave, he notices people gathering around another adventurer, cheering and complimenting him for breaking yet another record. It's common here, top-ranked hunters are always surrounded by fans and invited to join new parties. But Kodo doesn't even glance their way. He heads off, grabs a quick bite, and buys what he needs for the day. While walking, he reminds himself he's doing perfectly fine on his own. He has no interest in teaming up with people who'll later argue about credit and leadership. To him, life is better when it's quiet and simple. As he thinks about the peaceful evening ahead, he looks forward to cracking open a bottle once he gets home. But then, he notices a quiet little girl sitting alone in the pouring rain. Her face is empty, lifeless, like someone who's completely given up inside. She looks so fragile, like she could break at any moment. Kodo walks past her at first, confused about why a child would be out in such harsh weather by herself. He recalls how many homeless kids have started showing up inside the city walls, most of them driven by desperation, trying to survive by taking on impossible jobs. Some are even slaves, forced to die fighting just to please their masters. As he glances back at the girl, he wonders if she might be a pickpocket or something. But she looks way too young to be out here on her own. He keeps walking but can't shake the thought that she might end up just another sad story, a child found dead from hunger days later. That thought makes his chest tighten. With a shaky voice, he finally calls out to her. She's so shocked she doesn't even move. When he raises his voice again and tells her to look at him, she slowly lifts her head, her eyes filled with sadness. He asks what she's doing there. Looking at her closely, something seems off. Her clothes don't match anything people wear in this city, which makes him think she must have come from somewhere far away. What really catches his attention, though, is the expensive-looking staff. She's holding tightly something no ordinary child would ever carry. As the girl hugs herself tightly, clearly panicking, Kodo quietly wonders if he might have seen her before at the guild. But he knows that pretending to recognize her won't make her open up. He blames his bad memory for not coming up with something better to say. Still, something about her tells him she's not dangerous. She just looks like a scared child who's lost everything. Gently, he leans down and shields her from the rain with his arm. He admits he doesn't know what happened to her, but advises her to leave this harsh city. He even compares her to a rat, struggling to survive in these cruel streets. Those words hit her. Her eyes go wide, as if she's slowly trying to make sense of what he just said. Kodo then smirks at himself, thinking how he always ends up getting involved in strangers' lives. As he looks away, ready to leave, the girl doesn't stop staring at him. Her eyes are tired, but there's a faint light of hope in them. Kodo senses it and decides it's better not to give her any false expectations. He digs into his bag, pulls out a bottle, and hands it to her. He tells her it's not much, but at least the drink will help keep her warm. With that, he turns to go, feeling like he's done more than enough for the day. But as he walks away, the little girl stares at the bottle in her hands, confused and overwhelmed. She can't understand why a complete stranger would bother helping her, especially in a place where every small thing has value and kindness is rare. But just as he starts to walk away, the girl suddenly runs after him and grabs onto his robe, holding it as tightly as she can. Tears stream down her face as she clings to him, begging him not to leave her alone. Kodo, who usually does everything he can to avoid trouble, realizes that he's just walked into a much bigger mess. With a deep sigh, he gives in. He's now stuck with a stray kid he found on the cold streets. He takes her to his home, and the moment she steps inside, her eyes go wide. The place is huge, with many rooms that haven't been used in ages. Kodo casually tosses her a towel and starts lighting a fire to warm the room. He calls her over and asks for her name. In a shaky voice, she whispers, "Millie." When he asks why she was sitting out there all alone, she starts sweating nervously and blurts out a clearly made-up story about being exhausted after a big fight and just resting for a bit. Kodo gives her a look, then sits down and quietly says he doesn't care about her past or what she's hiding. All he wants is for her to warm up, because if she gets sick, he's not about to play nurse. He'll kick her right back out onto the street. Shivering, Millie softly asks if she's really allowed to take a bath in a place this nice. He nods, and for a moment, she just stares at him, trying to believe that someone like him would actually let her stay. Feeling a little guilty, Millie steps into the bathroom and is completely blown away. The place is huge, like something only nobles would have. Even having just one bar of soap is considered a luxury in this city. But here, she sees several, some even half-used. As she looks around in amazement, it finally sinks in. Kodo must be really wealthy. Then, her eyes catch her reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, painful memories rush back. She remembers the people she once trusted, the ones she followed her whole life, how they betrayed her and crushed her dreams without mercy. The memory is so sharp that it makes her flinch. She shakes her head, trying to block it out. Slipping into the warm water, she lets herself relax a little, blowing bubbles to ease the tension. She thinks about Kodo again, how a stranger like him actually stopped to help someone like her. If he hadn't, she probably would have died out there in the cold. Looking at her reflection once more, she quietly tells herself she'll do whatever it takes. This time, she won't let anyone throw her away. Just as these heavy thoughts cross her mind, she suddenly yells out loud. Kodo hears her and shouts back, asking if her tiny brain is working properly. Millie rushes out and starts begging him to let her stay. She clings to him, refusing to give up, bugging him non-stop like a stubborn kid. Kodo sighs and asks if she's just impressed by all the fancy stuff in his home. But Millie doesn't stop. She keeps pestering him with the same energy, clearly not planning to back down anytime soon. Kodo grabs Millie by the shoulders and warns her that this house is haunted by evil spirits. Shocked, she repeats his words like she can't believe them. He smirks and says that if she's brave enough to stay in a haunted house, then she can stay. Her face lights up with hope, but then he teases her again, pointing out that maybe she should be more worried about sharing a place with a grown man. Millie instantly gets the joke and runs away yelling that there's a pervert in the house. Kodo laughs it off and denies her claim, but she quickly changes the topic, excitedly suggesting they could live together like comrades. Kodo stands up, clearly annoyed, and tells her not to get the wrong idea. He makes it clear he's not going to look after her or treat her like a partner. In fact, the only reason she's getting a room is because his house has too many of them, and he figured he could spare one for a stray he picked up off the street. As he tosses her a blanket, she grumbles and softly mumbles, "Okay." Later that night, the two of them fall asleep near the fireplace. Millie quietly says she'll sleep off to the side. Even though Kodo never planned to let her stay, something in him just couldn't bring himself to kick her out into the cold rain. A few hours later, the sound of heavy rain wakes him up. The fire is almost out, and the room is getting cold. He adds more wood to the flames, then glances over at Millie. She's fast asleep, curled up with no cushion or blanket under her, using her bag as a pillow. She's mumbling something softly in her sleep, and for a moment, Kodo just watches her in silence. As Kodo listens closely, he realizes Millie is talking in her sleep, begging, crying, and pleading not to be thrown out. She keeps mumbling that she'll try harder and do better if someone just lets her stay. Her face twists with pain, and he notices tears slipping down her cheeks as she shifts around, clearly trapped in a nightmare. Watching her like that, Kodo starts to wonder if maybe just maybe he did the right thing by not turning her away. He lies back down quietly, trying to get some rest. In this city, getting kicked out of a group or party isn't rare. It happens all the time. But when it does, it destroys people. They lose their money, their friends, and everything they worked hard to build. Kodo is almost certain that Millie went through something like that. Still, he reminds himself that this wasn't some grand decision. He let her stay on a whim. Nothing more. With that thought, he slowly drifts off to sleep. The next morning, Kodo wakes up grumpy, stretching and yawning. Suddenly, he hears a loud, over-the-top sneeze echo through the house. Thinking something serious happened, he rushes over only to find Millie, dusty from head to toe, trying to clean an old shelf that hadn't been touched in ages. She wobbles a little, turns to him, and calls out his name in distress. Kodo, confused, asks what she's doing. Sniffling, Millie says she's cleaning. With a deadpan expression, he tells her he's never even looked at that shelf, and there's no reason she should be messing with it. As she whimpers for help, he sighs, picks her up like a rag doll, and scolds her for nearly wrecking the house he was kind enough to let her stay in. Kodo asks her why she even bothered to clean, and Millie shyly starts to explain. She says she just wants to stay on his good side, so maybe just maybe he'd let her join his party. But before she can finish, he cuts her off. Firmly, he tells her there's no chance of that happening. He's always been a solo adventurer, and no matter how sad her story is, he has no plans to take on a partner. He tells her to stop talking about it and invites her to eat instead. A little later, they both sit down at the table. Millie, with tears in her eyes, says she hasn't eaten anything in 5 whole days. Kodo is shocked and tells her how dangerous that is. Water drips from her mouth as she struggles to hold back her hunger, and he quickly tells her to start eating already. As they both begin to dig into their food, Kodo realizes it's been a long time since he's shared a meal with anyone. sitting there together. It feels like something new is beginning. Neither of them knows it yet, but their lives are about to change, and over time, they'll grow stronger together, becoming each other's greatest support in the world ahead.